John here from Make Math Moments. In this video, we're going to talk about the framework you need when you start to pick the action items to achieve your key results. So when you're thinking about what are the things that we are going to do, what can we commit to, what are the moves we're going to make, what are the initiatives that we're going to put in, what are the professional development sessions, and how do we think about our structures? Like all of these things come into play when you're trying to move the needle on a key result. For an objective. So if you have multiple key results, you're going to have multiple action items, and it can be overwhelming when you think about all of those action items. And part of this video is really to think about trying, in a way, I'm going to try to convince you to do less. Because when you start to go through this process of deciding what you can commit to achieve a measurable result, you're going to realize that there's a lot of things to consider and a lot of things that you're going to want to, use to measure, but also, say I can commit to this, I won't be able to commit to this. And I think a lot of times when we start to make, lists of things, we just kind of throw everything down in brainstorm format, which is a really great thing to do. But then we don't weed out what we should do and what we could do, and what actually will move the needle, and what actually we can get done. Because a lot of times it's like, here's all the things that we want to do, but then we don't actually achieve any of them, or we don't know if any of them actually made a difference on the key result. And that's really what we're going to go through here, is what framework we really need to think about and follow to create the action items that you want to achieve or want to do this year to get those key results. So I'm going to give you just a couple things. This is kind of our framework that we want you to follow. I'll walk through this in just a sec. We have a couple guiding things that we've used here. So from this book, Systems for Instructional Improvement, a couple guiding kind of quotes here is basically, I want you to remember that we want to be coordinated. So when we start to think about the action items, we want our coaches, we want our school leaders, we want our central office leaders. In order for us to create this sustained program, and also an aligned program, is that we do need to say coordinate the work. This coordination among all of our stakeholders here is essential if we're going to have any hope that we're going to achieve a key result. And what I mean by that is we don't want our coaches coaching in our classrooms that's in the work that they're supporting isn't related to, say, what you're doing in your professional development pullout sessions, a few times a year when you bring everyone together. Like, those two things should be aligned and coordinated. Any sort of, say, math professional development that happens at a staff meeting, is it coordinated to what the coaches are doing and when the full day sessions are doing? Like, we need this coordination. And that's why we created our vision. It's why we created our focus zones and our objectives, which means that you have to think about all of the current action items that are currently happening, and are they coordinated? So sometimes when you go through this process with things you're already doing, and then any new things that you may want to add in because you're thinking about the key result. Coordination is essential. So that's why we want you to think about, say, all levels. At the district level, like our central office leaders, what are they doing to support the work? What are our school leaders, like our principals and our department heads, or our math coaches at the school level, what are they doing to support the classroom, and what's happening in the classroom? So we do need to think about all those levels, and are they coordinated? So I want you to keep that in the back of your mind as you go through this. Are we making coordinated action items? The other thing is that oftentimes we need to do some learning here, that maybe we have to realize that we're not prepared to make these decisions, or we don't have the learning required yet to give and carry out these action items, which means that maybe the focus of some of the action items needs to be around that learning. So at the table right now, we want to decide, are we positioned to do this work? Are we positioned, or do we need to create action items that will allow us to do this work, and do this work better, and more impactful? That's from this book right here. Is that often the research, basically the research project of MIST, this team realized, that most of the school leaders and the coaches and central offices needed sustained and intensive professional learning opportunities to carry this work out. And that's most likely the case. So you might want to be considering, what action items do we need to add to our list that make us better positioned to do this work. So here's what we want to do. You're going to want to think about the things. These action items are things that you're going to do to move key results. You're going to take an objective, a focus zone. You're going to take your key result, a key result that you've made, or you're starting to still craft out, and you're going to say, what are we going to do to move this key result? And so we have a framework here we're going to follow. There's a template that you're going to fill out for each of those key results. The first thing you're going to do for each one, though, is you're going to decide, is this a district level action item? Like, what are our leaders prepared to commit to? What could they do to move the needle? I've talked a lot about in our podcast, but also with all of the other leaders that are going through this process, the difference between, or the comparison, and also the relationship between pressure and support. Is the right pressure being applied at the right levels to create the support that we want to happen in our classroom? So, for example, sometimes our coaches can't put pressure on our teachers. They're there to support, but sometimes our principals can put some pressure on our teachers to engage in some of that work. Same with our central office administrators can put pressure on principals, and then our coaches or our central office support coaches can support principals to do that work. So thinking about the pressure and support. So what are we prepared to do at central office to move the needle on the key result? We want those people to come up with, what is your commitment level, or what can you commit to making sure that we move the needle? So brainstorming what they can do, like how can they support principals? What are the action items that they're going to come up with? Same with the school. What can principals come up with? What can you come up with for principals to complete? How can we coordinate the effort between those two? And then same with what's going to happen in the classroom. How are we going to monitor the work? What work are we going to do? What professional development pullouts? Or how are we going to structure our one-on-one sessions for coaching if we're going to have one-on-one sessions? So all the things you've been doing and are currently doing, we want to think about coordinate those efforts. So for each one, okay, so basically brainstorming at these levels creates a massive list. But then what I want you to do is take one of those that's going to move the needle. So you have to say it's going to move the needle, and then follow this flow chart. So the flow chart basically says, is there learning needed? Are we prepared, or is there any learning that needs to be done that we need to do before we can actually carry this action item out? If you're not prepared, then that becomes the focus of the action item. We need to basically, in order for us to do that, we need some learning. And sometimes that can be side by side. If you are prepared to carry out that action item, then you're brainstorming that list, and you're going to follow this framework over here, and this template can help you. But before I go in there into this framework and showing you the template, and then why the template is essential, I wrote for each input, or we've decided for each input. And the idea here is that I want you to focus the action items on inputs and not outputs. Okay, so outputs are the result. Like the key result is technically the output. Whenever you do something, there is some sort of result, and you're going to focus on results while you create the action items. But I don't want you to solely focus on the result. I want you to focus on what you can do. The inputs are the things that cause the result to change. So I want you to focus on those inputs. So for example, instead of focusing on how many classrooms exhibit, discourse, or how many classrooms are doing this, or how many teachers are doing this, or the level of implementation that's happening here, those are all outputs. Those are like key results. We're looking for those, and those will be part of your measurement tools that you're going to be developing. But what you need to do here is focus on the inputs that get that. So instead of focusing on how many and what this looks like, focus on what you can actually commit to doing. So the example here is can we commit to having so many qualified coaching sessions? And then all of a sudden coaching sessions becomes an action item. What are we going to do in terms of our coaching? Are we having coaches are we going to create a schedule around coaches? Are our coaches going to do any one-on-one coaching in the classroom? What happens at the PLC? So these become the things we can commit to that cause the outputs. That's what we're talking about here. Okay, so for each one, and this is going to seem extensive, but the reason that this template is extensive is because when you pick an action item and you go through this, you're going to realize that in order for you to accomplish this action item, and that action item is directly going to move the needle on the key result, you might realize that committing to that one thing might be a lot and might be enough. It might even be too much. So oftentimes we make, as I said, we make action items, but we don't actually think our way through them that will cause an actual change. So that's what we're going to do here. So the framework here is basically we're going to follow an if-then-how framework. I'll outline that in a sec. And then we're going to ask what learning is required to carry that, what resources are required, who's going to provide the pressure, and who's going to own this task or own this action item. Sometimes we'll make things, but no one actually owns the task. It doesn't actually say, I have ownership of this and I'm responsible, I'm accountable for this to get finished and completed. How will each level commit to this item? So for example, you might come up with an action item, and we can go back to the top here and go, how can we make sure that all three of these levels of support or levels in the system can commit to sharing that action item? And then you want to confirm that it's coordinated as well. And you want to confirm that it actually will move the needle on the key result. So here's the template. Basically what you're going to want to do is for each action item, you fill this out. As I said, it's going to feel extensive, but filling it out will basically make you feel like, yes, this is worth doing. And yes, we can commit to it. And we know we actually have a plan to actually finish it. So for each one, you're going to say which objective it's part of, and then what key result you're trying to move. Is it district? Is it school? Is it classroom? Decide. Maybe it's a combination. Here's the if-then-how framework. Okay, so what you want to do here is say if, and then you state the action that you're going to do. So if we do this, and then you have to say what impact you're going to see. So that's the then. If I do blank up here, then I will see what impact. Then I will see this result. And I want you to clearly define that result. If you do this professional development session on this day coming up, then what are you hoping to achieve? Is it an awareness campaign? Is it giving everyone a sense? Like what is it that you really want to achieve here? Is it like, then I will see, classrooms shift in their instruction if I did that one thing? Is it likely that if I do that one thing, then I will see it? Or is there more to it? And that's why really getting clear on the then can help you decide that, oh, that means like, even if I do that, then I will see, if I want that result, that might mean I have to actually add more action items to my list. So this process can help you get really clear on what you really can commit to and what you can't commit to. Because right then, right there, by me saying, if I do that, then I will see that result, it's not that likely that if I just have one pull-out PD session, I'm actually going to see change in the classroom. It doesn't happen that way. Change happens when we have sustained, repeated support with teachers and with a community of teachers engaging in the same learning and the same practice. So we have to be able to think about that. Okay, so then if I do this, then I will see what result, define it. And then you also have to say, how will I know? Which means what evidence will I see? What's going to tell me that I had the result? So if I clearly define the result, I can then clearly define what evidence I'm looking for. And then you can go and capture that evidence. So for example, if I might say, if I do this pull-out professional development session, then I will create and strengthen confidence in our teachers' ability to deliver this type of lesson. How will I know? At the end, I'm going to give a survey that asks teachers, and these sets of questions, and I'm going to be looking for these key words to see if I've got confidence in the teachers that I've given the professional development to. So if, then how, right? If I do this, then I will see this result, and how will I know? Right there, is a lot to think about, and sometimes it's hard to think about those things, but you do need to think about them. Otherwise, why are we doing what we're doing? If we can't state the intended result and we can't state how we will know, then it's likely that it will get lost throughout the year, and you won't get to the end of the year and know that you had impact on anything that you did. This is why we want to make sure that we are clear on what we're doing. Okay, so here's the what's learning is required. So we need to answer that. Is there any required learning for you to actually carry this out? Maybe you need extra coaching on, say, the 5 practices for orchestrating productive mathematical discussions. Maybe you need to do a reading of that book so that you can carry this out. Or maybe a team member has to do something else for you to carry these things out. The other thing you're going to want to do is answer the rationale. Is like, what's to say that the thing that you're doing is the thing that will move the needle? How do you know that that's the most impactful? So sometimes when we go through this process, what I like to do is go through this process and go, if I do this, then I will see this result. I will know it by how, and then I like to add this extra question at the rationale. Well, if I do that, okay, let's assume for a second we could do that. Okay, then I get that result. But then I can say, if I just want the result, is there another thing I could do that gets me that result faster, better, more stronger? If so, then maybe we just do that instead. So that the rationale helps you go, maybe there's another option, but also maybe there's a research-based option that says, don't do that, do this instead. So get some rationale of whether this makes sense or not. Then there's accountability. So what are you going to do to make sure that you're accountable? Who's accountable? And how will you make sure that there is, say, consistent follow-up or check-ins to make sure that this gets done? So we want to be able to say, what's the plan? What's the plan to make sure that this is accomplished, and we have a clear measure of who is going to accomplish it. Again, what learning is required? I'll take that out. It's meant to say what resources are required. What resources are required? Maybe we need to gather extra resources. Maybe we need to purchase something. Maybe we need another set of tools to make sure that this gets completed. Maybe we need to implement and bring in personnel. This next one is, how do you know that this item is coordinated among the systems? So if I do this, am I sure that it's not conflicting with what the coaches are being asked to do or what principals are being asked to do? Basically, we need to say, is it aligned to the key result? And is that key result aligned to the objectives? And does everybody know that those are the key results and the objectives? Timeline. When will we do this? Maybe it's to be done by a certain date, but also maybe it's ongoing. So this is the framework, and basically you want to answer these questions. So if you're sitting at a table right now and you're saying, what are we going to do for any one piece of item, any one idea of what you currently are doing or what you could do, you need to answer these questions. And if you can answer these questions, you feel confident that it's the right move, and you have the right plan, and you have the right impact, and you have the right measure, then you're going to say, let's go do this, and let's schedule it, and let's make sure it gets done. And this can often lead to saying, well, we can only handle these 3, because you have to basically say, what can I commit to? Because we want to see this be carried through, and we want to see this result achieved. We can only commit to so many things, and you just want to make sure that if you do commit to them, there's a plan, and you'll hit them, and the rationale says this is the right move to actually move our key result. So that's the framework. That's the template you're going to want to follow, and you want to do that for every action item under each key result. So if you've got multiple key results, you're going to have multiple action items, and therefore you're going to want to fill this out for each one. And maybe you'll realize by doing this, you'll realize that, you know what, we can't achieve all these key results this year. Maybe we have a longer term plan here, or maybe we want to focus on just one objective. Or we want to focus on just one key result from one objective, and that's all we can commit to. So it's the process here is really to get narrow and really to figure out what you can commit to. All right. Good luck.